Welcome to your 10th podcast on Shakespeare. This one is on Shakespeare's final venue, and that is the Blackfriars Playhouse. It's an indoor playhouse, you can see from this image, where they could play in the winter or during inclement weather. And it was also a more expensive place, so they made a little bit more money. But there's an interesting history behind the Blackfriars Playhouse, and we want to know that so that we understand the importance of Shakespeare's company having established a theater there. So once Henry VIII dissolved the monasteries, of course, taking over anything that was valuable and taking for himself those properties or giving to his friends, this is one of those buildings that was kind of in flux. It has a very interesting history. For example, this was the divorce hearing of Catherine Aragon that took place there in 1529. And it would remain a very important place for the English. So originally, it was used by the children's company. The children's companies were not necessarily competitors with Shakespeare, but it was considered a more tame type of entertainment, something a bit more perhaps uplifting, or where I am going because I want to hear a lesson that will remind me of our Greek and Roman heritage. So the children's companies operated here, but the neighborhood absolutely did not want Burbage, and this is James Burbage, the father, who had this idea to convert the building. They did not want James Burbage to actually turn it into a place where adults would stage plays. And why? Because all of those things that I'd already mentioned that were linked with plays are a part of that decision. The prostitution, certainly the criminality around the plays. The neighbors did not want this theater to attract those kinds of crowds to their area. So he was having difficulty with his landlord already in 1596 and looking for a different venue, and that 1596 venue is the theater that I mentioned in one of the preceding podcasts. So he purchases the building but cannot use it, and so he has to lease it out until Shakespeare's company gains a bit more footing within the monarchy in order to convert this building and successfully exploit it. James Burbage would die before the building was converted, and he probably died thinking he'd made a terrible mistake. But in fact, it was one of the best things that he did for his company, which became, of course, Shakespeare's and Burbage's company thereafter. Because we moved from the outdoor playhouse where it was a little cruder setting, and of course the plays had to be written for peoples of all different types, different walks, and therefore I moved from that to the indoor theater where I have a more refined crowd, a refined crowd that can pay a little bit more as well. So the Blackfriars Theater, more than anything else, its importance comes from the fact that, go back, we are indoors, I can charge more money, I have staging that's going to be quite different for this kind of setup. You see, we still don't have a proscenium arch. We have if you can see, the audience is seated all around, as they are at the Globe as well, but covered with a roof. I have this different seating arrangement. The most expensive seats are going to be those that are close up, right? And these here, whereas in the past at the Globe, these were the cheaper ones because you had to stand up. Here I finally get to sit down. Notice they're just benches too. So with this indoor venue comes what perhaps you can see as well with these lines, and that would be the lighting. And this is what will, I would say, forge the way plays are conceived until the age of electricity, because we have candles on these chandelier type things, and they have to be replenished in the middle of the play. So these intervals are established where I roll down this cord and I replace the candles, and then I have to roll it back up. This disturbs verisimilitude. There was probably some musical entertainment, at least we know there was by 1660, and changed the way people felt about their theater experience. And just to compare as well, the audience capacity was far fewer, in fact, than at the Globe. The Globe you could put in 2,000 easily. Here I'm down to 500 people. They're paying a lot more, 1 to 3 pennies at any of the public theaters, but here I'm up to 2 to 26 for entrance. And this, again, I want you to remember, this is when the scenery was introduced. That perspective scenery that could be used over and over again because it could be housed. Costumes also could be housed in a bit safer conditions. And therefore, it's a theater that is a little more self-conscious as being theater and not so much the open-air romp, perhaps, that we might consider those public playhouse plays to be. And again, we have this emphasis on words. The emphasis on words never goes away, but perhaps it becomes more critical in this indoor playhouse where there is less sound. I don't hear the bear baiting going on a block away. I don't hear the people eating the nuts on the groundlings, right, on the ground floor. Instead, I have silence, and I'm more focused on the play with that visual component coming in of those the decor that establishes place for the plays. And that concludes our podcast on the Blackfriars. I suggest that you look up the Blackfriars Theater so you can get a closer look at some of these pictures, or rather drawings, that we have from the time period. And remember that it's the later plays that are going to be staged there. So from Pericles forward, we can be fairly certain that the plays were staged in these indoor venues. Thank you for listening.